Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Her Playbook podcast with Devon and Jaden. We are so excited to be back and get into this episode. We're going to be talking about relationships and dating and in college and all the good, the bad, the ugly. So stick around.
I think first we should start with what kind of a little update on what we've been doing.
We just got back from LSU. We had a travel trip there, and honestly, it was a great tournament. We went 4-0 actually, and played against some really good teams. All the teams were like top 5.
Yeah.
I mean, we played against FSU, LSU, FAU, and TCU. So we definitely had our hands full with competition, but our team, I feel like, hit a switch. And I think we played great. And at the end of the tournament, we kind of just talked about how confident everyone was, pair 1 through 5. And I just think that we had a really big breakthrough. So honestly, the entire tournament was fantastic.
I've never seen a facility like that. It is I'm sure people haven't seen the LSU beach volleyball courts. They are they took their old tennis court, so it's structured in the same way tennis seating is, where you're looking down at everybody. And so you can feel the room in the stadium. So when we played LSU, it was like I was so excited. Even though all of those fans are cheering against us, it was still so cool just feeling the environment and getting in the swing of things. So that was really fun. I also think it was such a big weekend for women's sports, and I feel even though I'm not involved with women's basketball at all, I don't play, I follow it, but I'm not heavily involved with it.
Yeah.
It just makes me feel so empowered, and knowing that the future of women's sports is continuing to grow. And I feel one of the quotes I consistently see is that when you give women's sports a platform, you will get results. And that's exactly what's happened with women basketball. Yeah. So I want that to transition to beach volleyball selfishly, and I'm hoping it will in the near future, because it has for indoor volleyball.
Yeah.
But that was fun to see.
I think the fact that basketball is booming right now, that's amazing. I just can't wait to see other women's sports.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see which one's next.
Yeah. So
I'm thinking maybe we should start on what our path has been with relationships, and I don't know, a general gist maybe.
Yeah. I would like to know what your parents were in high school.
Yeah.
I know some people aren't even able to date in high school.
Yeah.
I know you had boyfriends, but
yeah.
Elaborate.
So my parents are awesome. They I feel what every kid hopes their parents are when they're my age and can reflect back. I'm sure at 15 I was why can't I hang out with a boy alone? But looking back, thank God I wasn't allowed to. But
yeah,
my parents were let me have the freedom to choose. For me, I remember I had a boyfriend my freshman year of high school, and looking back, it's the silliest relationship possible. But I didn't really date other than that. I had I feel there was a couple situationships, and there was some fun, but for the most part, I never had to have serious conversations with my parents in high school about can we spend time alone together? I don't know, it's just so different than what we have now in college, where it's you have the freedom to choose to do whatever you want. Yeah. What about you? Yours is very different.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny now just because my mom and I are so close.
Yeah.
We've always been close, but just with me being the firstborn child, she was definitely really strict on me. And I know strict looks different for everyone.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I wasn't able to date, I was, but it was just kind of difficult sometimes just because I was the firstborn. So it was her first time too. It makes sense looking back on it now, but we definitely butt heads sometimes, and didn't see eye to eye on a few things. But I definitely had a few relationships in high school. And just looking back now, it's so funny because you really feel so much older, when you're 14, 15, 16, and dating in high school, and you think you're in love. And I feel looking back, I do think I felt feelings of love, but I don't know, being in love.
I totally agree. I feel for me, at least in high school, one of the biggest reasons of why I wanted a relationship or a boyfriend was because of the look of it.
Yeah.
Not even like, I don't think that with whoever I was with in high school, I don't remember being like, I'm so excited to just hang out with them alone.
Yeah.
It was more like, I'm so excited to go tell my friends that I hung out with my boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
Which is so different. And I think what you said about, this is almost a different subject, but not really. What you said about like feeling in love is my entire take on it has been like every time you leave a relationship, because you think it was love like in the moment, but when you leave, you kind of look back and you're like, I wasn't actually in love.
Yeah, it's so
because
true.
like it's so different every time. And like the biggest hope is that like moving forward after you like end your relationship with someone or someone ends it with you is that with the next person you're with, you feel like in love even deeper and like you feel that emotion even stronger. Because I feel like it would be very detrimental to your relationship if you were still with someone and being like, I was more in love before. Then you shouldn't be together.
So true. Yeah. It's like every time I think about it, it's like the Ariana Grande song, Thank You Next.
Yeah.
Like, so true, because I feel like having relationships in high school, they seem like so silly, but they were so important. And
for sure.
I feel like going through relationships, you take so much out of it and you like learn so much about what you're looking for and about yourself, and you take it into your next relationship. And I don't know, I wouldn't have changed a thing. I think it's so important to, if you're able to date in high school, like, you know, like meet people and
and learn. Because I think that if you can make this is not something that everyone I would say would agree with.
Oh God.
But if you can make a lot of mistakes in high school where you have like the safety net of your family and you have a huge pool of people, of friends, and you also have the security blanket of knowing you're leaving soon.
Yeah.
That's like the best time to do it. I think some of my biggest mistakes were made in high school when I was young and I didn't know anything about the world of like relationships, dating, going out, anything about that.
Yeah.
And it brought me into college feeling way more like ready to settle and like looking for somebody who I'm actually compatible with rather than doing it for the attention or doing it to be crazy or whatever it may be. So I feel like if you are in high school or if you are like in a situation where you can meet a lot of people, like go at your own pace, but don't be afraid to like make mistakes because it's going to happen and you're going to feel like, why did I just waste my time with that person? But it's like you completely probably just learned a huge lesson that's going to lead you even to a better person.
Couldn't agree more. Yep. Going into college, we kind of talked about this in an episode before with Maya, but having a boyfriend, what is your take on it? Like going into college with a boyfriend, do you think it's good?
Yeah,
bad?
It's hard for me to exactly speak on it because I didn't have a boyfriend going into college, but I almost somewhat did because I got a boyfriend before I got a boyfriend in summer C session, which is like our classes before school actually starts. And then I had one. And then so even though I can't exactly speak on it, I think for me, that was what was best for me at the time. And it made it so that I didn't have to get as involved with like the hookup culture and going out like crazy and stuff. But I think that coming into college with a boyfriend, from what I have seen from either my friendships or other people, that it really like limits you.
Yeah.
Like you walk in thinking that it's going to be one thing and you don't realize how hard it is until you get there.
Yeah.
So I feel like if you are going to go into college with a relationship, if you're seeing problems early on, being like, man, like they don't really like that I'm going out with this group of people, or wow, I'm kind of wanting to like talk to other people, maybe end it there.
Yes.
Don't like push it further because you're also going to see each other over Christmas break and that's going to be a whole different story. So just like cut it dry there and be done.
Definitely. That's so true. I think what you said about like assessing the relationship and kind of seeing, is it a strong relationship? Like, can it like sustain being in like that environment of maybe being in a long distance relationship or, you know, like, or are you having problems and can you trust this person? Because if you can't trust them, like it was over. Yeah. So I don't know. Every relationship's different, but I had a relationship going into college and it was long distance and he was really, really awesome about it and was really like a good boyfriend. But I knew within myself, like I wanted to grow so much as a person in college. And so I had to break that relationship off. But it was the right thing to do because I knew like, oh, I'm in college, like a lot of people, like new people, like, and I didn't want to just be like stuck in my dorm. Like I wanted to be doing things.
Yeah.
So everyone's different, but that's my take on it.
I think too, like if anybody listening or anybody you know is going into college with a boyfriend and you're like in a happy relationship with that person, like there's no harm in staying in that relationship. I think that's awesome. There's so many people who are married now that from their high school sweethearts, which is amazing. But I also think like do not let, like what you were saying, like do not let that limit you. Like still go out and hang out with your friends and don't be like isolating yourself inside just waiting for your boyfriend to FaceTime you and stuff. Just like live life, and then the second you see each other, be so present with each other. Like don't let it like absorb, because even I do that sometimes when it's like I'll be away from my boyfriend for 2 weeks and I'm like, I literally want to sit on my phone until he calls me because I just want to talk to him. And then I'm like, and then it makes me miss him even more and I'm more miserable because of it. Whereas then I could put my phone down knowing that I'm going to get a call in 2 hours and go enjoy my time with my teammates.
So true.
Yeah.
I feel like I still do that too now. I'm like, okay, so what's Nate doing? Like, what's he doing? I'm like, okay, I need to be present with my friends. And I think that's always so important to, remember. But
yeah. Do we want to maybe do like, why don't we give an overview kind of what our college dating experience was like?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
You want to go first?
Sure.
Yeah, you go first.
Okay. So like I said, I got to college. I got a boyfriend pretty quickly into summer C-session. And then we continued to date when COVID hit. So we continued to date for almost a year, probably a little less than that. And that was like my first real relationship. So it was huge for me learning like my style of who I am in a relationship and what I also had to work on. Being in that relationship actually was the reason I went into therapy in the first place. Not even because, this is so embarrassing, but not even because of the other person, but it was because I was realizing that I would like constantly want like either attention or like I would throw little fights in there because I was like, give me more. Like, so I was like, I'm so sick of doing that. And he was really sick of me doing that as well. So I was like, I'm going to put myself in therapy. I'm going to work on myself. And I did work on myself. And then the second I did, I was kind of like, you know what, this relationship, when I was in COVID, I was like, this isn't for me anymore. And we actually maintained being good friends for the rest of the 3 years. So that's awesome. Hope you're doing well. And then when COVID hit, it was, let's say I was a sophomore in college and I got into a relationship with my upstairs neighbor, which is never a good call. No. I feel like I didn't start seeing that stuff until I was knee deep in it. And I wish I did earlier because COVID was different though. You could only see a couple people and he was just one of those people that I could see. Yeah. Which made it easy to like hang out all the time. But I think I got really stuck in like the comfortableness of that. Like, I don't know if we would have ended up together had it not been for COVID, because I just don't think that us two like matched. But I always say this, I think there are like the 3 like greatest loves of your lives. And like the first one is supposed to be like innocent. You're like learning about a relationship, which was my first one. And then my second one, which is like more toxic and there's more fighting and there's more arguments, which is this. And then to my now boyfriend, Noah, who is like the absolute love of my life. We met more than a year ago, but it was in our training room. And I had seen him from like across the room and I was like, oh my God, we got a transfer. I was like, we got a new one.
We got a new one in town.
Yep. And so I kept like looking at him, and he says now that like, he was like, I was just looking at you because you were looking at me. I didn't realize it. And I was like, okay. Okay. And then,
you're welcome.
Yeah. And then he followed me on Instagram and I was like, yes, I'm in. And so we were actually at a tournament and I was pretty down bad because I had just gotten a pretty big shoulder injury.
Yeah, just a little one.
Yeah. And so I was like out watching you guys all compete. And so I remember I was sitting with our teammate Jayla and we were kind of like scheming on like how we're supposed to like talk to these people, because she at the time was talking to his teammate. And I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna like an old picture on Instagram. I'll tell you this in a second, but I liked the picture on Instagram and he came up with the most clever DM to send me, which now my teammates have reused and recycle. He sent me a DM and he was like, something like along the lines of like, did you mean to, like, what are you doing sliding in at 1:20 or p.m. on a Sunday?
Yeah, wasn't it like liking your story? Wasn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah. And that, like, literally has been recycled throughout my whole team. They've been using it like crazy, which I love.
Like, what's your intention of liking my story? Or should I be reading into this?
Should I be reading into this?
Yeah.
That's what he said. He was like, should I be reading into you liking my post on Sunday at 1:20 p.m.? And then I responded to it and I was like, maybe. And then we ended up hanging out that night, and we've pretty much just been hanging out every single day since then. And that is like that's my third and final. Like, that is just, he is perfect in every single way for me. And now I'm like incredibly happy. But we always tell each other, he always jokes that like we would be like perfect for each other no matter where, like at what time. Like, I wish we found each other earlier. Wow. And I'm always like, no, because I needed those other relationships to go so poorly and to like learn so much from those in order to be like the best I can in this one and like understand like who I am and what I need.
Also, like, being a friend and like watching you progress like through the years, like it's actually pretty crazy thinking about like where you were with like certain individuals.
I know.
And what's funny is I can always like remember like whenever Devon would show up to practice and like her hair was like a new color, like it would be blue, and I would be like, okay, something happened.
I have gone through
wrong?
Like, you know what, I'll put the pictures in, maybe.
Yeah, you should put the pictures in.
I went platinum blonde, I went gray, I went green, I had blue hair, I had red hair at one point, I had purple hair.
Yeah.
And then when I was like back to like a good place and like broken up with and like happy, I went back to my brown hair, which is like a tell sign of like I'm doing okay.
Yeah, you're doing much, much better.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What's yours been like?
For me, let's see, where do I even begin? I came into college with a boyfriend, and that ended pretty soon into college, like I said.
Yeah.
Just because I wanted to be myself in college.
Yeah.
But that only lasted a few months and then I started dating someone on the men's volleyball team.
Yeah.
And this was pretty interesting, actually, because being in a relationship with another student athlete at UCLA was very convenient. And honestly, it was a lot of fun, especially because our teams are so close.
Yes.
And yeah, we dated for like a year and a half maybe, and then COVID hit. Oh, and then coming back from COVID, I was single for some time, and honestly, I thought that was a really important part of college. I think it was too. Just to be single, and like I wanted to go into college and be myself and explore and whatever. So I think that was kind of a pivotal time. And then my junior year of college is when I met Nate. And we met through mutual friends. He went to Cal Poly SLO and lived with some of my best friends from high school. And so previously I would go up to SLO to visit them. And actually it's pretty funny, but I during COVID, I took my ex-boyfriend the house, and at this time Nate and I didn't really even know each other, but it's just funny because I think we stayed there for like a week. And looking back now, it's just like, it's just questionable. But anyway, and then when I was single, my friend Nicole posted like a Snapchat story of Nate, and it was just like a funny one, and I slid up and I was like, so is he single yet? Like, because he had a girlfriend previously. And so she was like, he is, like, you should come visit after your season's over. And so Maggie and I drove up to SLO, and we spent the weekend camping for a friend's birthday, and we just had like the most amazing weekend ever. And like as soon as I saw Nate again, like, and we both knew we were interested in each other this time around, like it was game over. And it's been now almost 3 years together, which is just crazy. But he's literally perfect, and it's amazing just like how perfect he fits into like my life, and just like my entire family loves him. All my friends love him. And I just think it's just so fun when Or it's funny when my friends will come up and be like, so where did you find him? And like,
Yeah,
where can I
I
get
used
one?
to do that to you all the time. I'd be like, where's Cal Poly Boy number 4? I was like, because I need him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just be like, so like, does Nate have any friends?
Yeah.
Like, but
I think that's such a like tell sign of like how good he is. If like somebody's like, can you like set me up?
yeah.
But I also think like one of my like something like very vividly for some reason I remember is like I think it was on a travel trip. I think it definitely was on a travel trip, and it was in season last year. And so this is like around the time period that like I was getting to know Noah. And I remember I had like obviously heard about like you and Nate and like how you met and stuff like that, because I was like falling in love and I was like, wait, Jaden, how did you fall in love with Nate? How'd you know?
Oh no.
And so then you were telling me the whole story about like how quickly you knew, and it was like you almost felt like crazy for saying it and like thinking it.
Yeah.
Which I think is so cool, because like that's exactly what I was feeling in that moment. Is I was like, it's been like 2.5 weeks. Like,
Yeah.
am I crazy? Which I think is cool, because it's like there's just some people that like you grow to love,
Yeah.
or like grow to fall in love with, and then there's some people that like you instantly just like have that connection.
Yeah.
Which I love.
I know. Nate and I always say like the first night we were together was at the camping trip, and we just like had the most amazing night ever. And it's just like so cheesy and cliche to say,
Yeah.
but like that night everyone was like dancing on the beach, and we were like dancing together, and it was just like,
It's out of a movie.
I don't know, it was yeah, it was like a movie. And then like you were saying, like 2 weeks later he drops an I love you on me. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh
And you're like, well, I
God.
feel the same damn way.
Yeah, it's like holy moly. But
I have a question.
oh yeah.
Well, I think this would be interesting because I'm making an assumption, but we can share 2 different perspectives on this. You've broken up with someone before.
Yes.
Yeah. And I've broken up with someone before, but I've also been like broken up with down bad. So I was thinking it'd be cool to share like maybe like the do's and don'ts of like each scenario. If someone right now is like, I need to break up with my boyfriend,
Yeah.
what would you recommend?
Okay, well, I will say that I didn't do this perfectly, but looking back
Yeah.
on it now, like I think I know.
Yeah.
But breaking up with someone is terrible. Like I am also really bad at like in my previous
confrontation.
relationships. Yeah.
Yeah.
My problem is confrontation. So breaking up with someone is like one of the most challenging things ever. But I think you just kind of have to be like clear and kind of come from like a good place with like good intentions and just like cut it off. Because the people who kind of like linger around or like start playing games or ghost people, I think that's one of the worst things you can do.
Yeah.
And I have had experiences where I start to like, I don't know, like feelings start going away, and I'm not like confident enough to break it off, or I'm like, oh, maybe I'm just like, I don't know how I feel. And then I end up hurting the person more.
Totally.
Because I wasn't like confident in myself to be like, okay, I know I'm starting to move on.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be my advice.
I think that's great advice. I would say specifically don't ghost someone.
Yeah.
I've been ghosted before, and it's the worst feeling. Not because I'm like, it just puts so much internal pressure on me being like, well, what did I do?
Yeah.
Like, I remember when we had plans and like I didn't hear from the person for 2.5 weeks when we were supposed to get dinner that night. And I was like, what? Like in my head, I'm like, why? Like, what did I do? I'm rethinking everything from the past 2 or 3 days. And I'm like, did I do something? Like,
so mean.
What did I say? What did I do? And then like, of course, like truth comes out and it's like they were seeing someone or something like that. And it's like, I would have so much rather just heard that, because that's cool to make me kind of go through that cycle and think it's like a me problem of like, I did something to you.
Yeah.
That's the worst feeling. So that's number one. Don't do that.
Yeah.
I have been broken up with, and it was in a relationship where I like totally didn't see it coming. And in a way of like, I didn't see it coming that night. I had made a full dinner. I had made chicken. I had made green beans. I had made like lobster biscuits.
Oh my God.
And then it just came out of the blue that night. And I was like, oh, okay. But I think that for me, I was not at the best place mentally already. So to have that added on, I was like, oh my God, everything's wrong with me. And so I took that moment and I spiraled hard, which I think everyone's going to spiral when you get broken up with, because you're like, especially if you didn't see it coming.
Right.
Or if you don't like agree with it at the time.
Yeah.
And so I spiraled like crazy. I think I came to practice the next day. We had media day the next day.
Oh, yeah.
Which was just cruel. Like my eyes, I will never show my sophomore year.
No, let's show it.
I will literally never do
Let's
that.
show it.
I have puffy eyes and I'm like smiling for the camera, like, thank you. But I took like, I couldn't get myself out of bed, and like I was just so distraught. Not even about like looking back, not even about the relationship itself, but about like, what is it about me that like can't keep somebody like that? And I just let myself go to like shambles. And I took, I think, a week off of practice. I told my coaching staff, I was like, I'm not well. Like I couldn't eat, sleep, or drink. And I was just done for. And then I kind of realized, like, I don't know what the mental switch was for me. The reason I'm so sad isn't because of this, but it's because all these other factors. So I like really worked on like my friendships, and I found other hobbies that I've never done with that person, so that it was like a completely new thing. And I found like, I mean, I loved watching the sunset, so that's what I continued to do. And I just like let myself feel everything, because you can't expect yourself to get over something in a week if it was something that was like a long-term relationship, or even if it wasn't. Like I have a friend who's like going through such a severe heartbreak because he didn't like, even if it was a shorter term relationship, like that didn't change the amount of love that was there. And so I think that you have to give yourself time to feel everything.
Yes.
Because that's the only way you're going to fully recover. And then I think like, let yourself make the mistakes. Like if you don't handle a breakup the right way, like
it's hard.
Who cares? Like
Yeah.
I did not handle the breakup the right way. I made myself look really embarrassing, I'm sure, for a little bit, but I was like, I don't look back now and be like, God, I wish I did it differently. Like probably a month late after I did. But I also think that when I look back on, if you're ever feeling heartbroken, and like if you could just see where you're at like 2 years from now, a year from now, like I'm like, thank God that happened, because like now I'm like the happiest I've ever been, and with someone who I never like thought I could meet. Like that's times 12 whatever I was like so upset about.
Yes.
So
yeah, I know, that's so true. Like looking back, I remember just being so sad about like these relationships ending. And it's so normal to feel. I mean, like you're with someone for a reason, and especially those long relationships, it's more just like going from being with someone to just completely not being with someone is just like not talked about enough. Like I feel like that is just such a weird feeling, and it feels like, I don't know, part of you is missing. And it's like a completely new chapter of your life, and sometimes that could be really, really hard to move on. But do we want to go into our little question segment?
I think so.
Okay, we are going to go into the things we wish we knew about dating in college. So the first question, Devon.
Oh, wait, first. We got so many like responses on like what you would want to know about relationships and dating, which we so appreciate. So these questions are like authentically from you guys. Like they're not like,
they're straight off the iPad.
Literally.
First question is, how do you balance long distance during season when you're traveling with no free time?
God, that is such a great question. And it's something that I'm dealing with now, because we're traveling like crazy right now. Like we just got back on Sunday, and we had to turn around to now I'm leaving on Thursday morning, and it's going to be the same thing. And we only get 1 day off. So it's like, you're right back to it. You have practices, you have lift, and then I'm on a plane. And so something that like I was struggling with is like finding time within even those 3 days to like really feel quality time. So I think that like as much as like your schedule like doesn't allow you to do certain things, if you can make, like when I'm on travel trips, like I make time to like give a 5-minute phone call. I'll never be the kind of person who's gonna like schedule a FaceTime unless it's like really necessary or something like that. But like dinner over FaceTime, especially when I'm on a travel trip, like I'm not gonna do that.
Right.
But it's really important for me to like feel loved and like to also feel prioritized, and vice versa. It's really important for me to give that as well. So like anytime something happens, or like if I have 2 minutes where I just want to hear Noah's voice, I'm like gonna call him and see if he's free. If he's not, he's not. But like I also keep him updated on everything. But we spend like we fully commit on my day off, which I'm so lucky that he was able to take like work off that day, and like we spend the whole day together. And then like we try and do one date night a week. So it's like we'll find 1 hour of our time to just spend it with each other, like no phones, like, and I just want to be with him. And then I want to hold on to that moment for the next week and a half.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's great.
Well, do you have any tips actually about that? You're in the same boat.
I mean, yes, except for I just feel like it's harder for me to relate because I've never really done long distance.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's going to look different for everyone.
Yeah.
I can think of like Reagan, for example, on our team,
Yeah.
who goes months without seeing her boyfriend. And right now, like Nate and I are like half kind of living together. So it's like, I don't know. I see him all the time, and I'm so lucky to be able to spend so much time with him.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's got to be different for the girls and guys who have to do long distance and have to go months without seeing them. Like that would be so hard. Especially, I care so much about quality time.
Yeah.
So luckily, I've never had to deal with a long distance relationship. But I
had to do long distance over summer for a while, and I feel like that was the first time I've ever done long distance before. And one of my biggest tips is that like FaceTime does really help because you feel like I could be like feeling like I'm missing a piece, but for some reason, just like hearing like their voice and like talking to them makes it like, okay, I can get through the next day. Like that's fine. I got to like tell you about my day, and it feels like not the same, but it feels like some sort of quality time for me. But okay. Ooh. How do you know that they're the perfect partner for you?
Oh gosh, that is really interesting.
It's a cute one.
That is really cute.
Yeah.
I would think it's a little bit different for everyone. And like I said, Nate and I like kind of hit it off right away, and I can it just felt different.
Yeah.
And that's what it was for me. But one thing I can really attest to is, does your parents, does your family, does your friends like him? Because I've been in relationships before where that's not the case.
100%.
And I knew it, but I didn't want to believe it. And I was really defensive about it because I was like, well, they're not seeing what I'm seeing. And looking back, like they were right. And it just shows like the people that are closest to you know you so well. And if they don't like the person you're with, I think that's, pretty interesting.
It's a sign. Yeah.
And so the fact that my family and my friends were just like, oh my God, Nate's amazing. Like he fits in so well. Like he literally comes on like our family trips with us. Like, I don't know. It's reassuring to like know what I'm seeing. My family and my friends are seeing too. So
yeah, that's good.
Do you have anything?
I think for me, like finding someone who brings like the best out of you and like your best self. So like me at my best self is like, I'm really childish. I'm like, I laugh all the time and like, I'm just stress free and like it's just funny. And like, that's exactly how Noah and I's relationship started, was just being really funny. And I also think that it should have like a certain level of ease to it. Like from the start, it was something that's like I wanted to continuously hang out. Like I don't want, like, people are different. People are going to want their space. And there's times that I've been like, I need myself. Like I need my alone time. But I constantly like want to see him. And I also want to do things that are going to like make him proud of me as well. And it's not just like for me anymore, but it's like for both of us. It's like we're working as like a unit. Like he's going to make me a better person, like while we're together, but he's also not going to judge me for like anything I do wrong. Yeah,
it's like being your own people, but like also together. And I think that's so important, especially when someone can bring out the best in you. Like that's what you want. And I think another thing too is like, is that person like your best friend? Like, can you tell them anything? Like, can you be honest? Like, can you trust them? I feel like those things are so important in like considering if this person's the right person for you. Okay, next question. What is your number one red flag in a guy?
Number one red flag is when a guy is going to be disrespectful to impress his friends. Like that really bothers me. I really pay attention to the way people talk when like their person isn't there. And like, I think something that I noticed, I also, because I had an upstairs neighbor boyfriend, I could hear every conversation on the balcony.
Oh,
and
you gotta tell this story.
Yeah. And there was one point where they were like all having a guys' night and I could hear everything from my window. And the way they were talking about me, two other females was so disgusting. And I felt so lucky to hear that because I was like, I'm good. Like, I don't want any part of that. And I think that something I really admire about Noah is like, I know that like when someone's like, this is a green flag for me, is when someone's so not afraid to be grossly in love with you. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't care if like your friends think it's gross or they're going to make fun of you for it. Like, be the guy that they make fun of. Yeah. That's like the best part about Noah for me is like from the beginning is he's let everyone make fun of him for how often he's going to talk about me or like if we're going to like be together every night. Like, he doesn't care if other people are like, ew, like, why are you doing that?
He's just himself.
And
he treats you like a princess.
Yes.
And he's not afraid to show it. And that's amazing.
And that's the best thing ever. Why don't we do our last question?
Okay.
Last question. Is it hard to be in a relationship while playing a sport in college? And being like, I want to expand it a little bit to being like an athlete with somebody who's maybe not an athlete.
It's a very good question.
Mm-hmm.
From my experience, I've done both. I mean, I've been in a relationship in college, and I've been single in college, and there's benefits to both. I feel like, honestly, like being in a relationship in college kind of settled me.
Yeah.
And I mean, you wake up, you do your stuff, practice, lift, school, social life, and then like you can come back home and you have like someone always there. Like, that's such a huge thing, and that's something that I really like loved in college and still love. But balancing, I mean, it's different for everyone. I think when you're single in college, you have a lot of opportunities to go out and meet people, which is great. But I mean, for me, I like being in a relationship really helped me just kind of like settle down and like also mature.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with either one. But that's kind of what it was for me.
Yeah.
And I've never dated, well, I was going to say like an athlete, but for me, I think dating Nate is the first time that I didn't date an athlete.
Yeah.
Or Nate, well, he would like to say he was a big athlete. He was a big athlete in high school.
Yeah.
But in college, he wasn't. And I don't know. I think the biggest difference was that he just went to another college and he didn't go to UCLA.
Yeah.
And I think that was great because actually I met a lot of people. I met a lot of new people. And I got to kind of expand my like circle.
Yeah.
And I met his best friend, and then his best friend started dating my roommate. And then like everything just kind of happened for a reason. So yeah, I don't even remember what the question was. Really.
Well, you answered it. That was good.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you can go.
That was so much fun. I like love talking so candidly about like things that are like really prevalent in our lives. If you have anything else we didn't get to answer, just DM us. We will answer it immediately. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. We really appreciate it. Follow us on Her Playbook Pod on all platforms and continue listening. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye.